Welcome to our 6 p.m. service. Thank you for taking the time to join us once again. Um, this is part two, the final session of our two-part series on health. Last year we talked about nutrition and fitness, and Ms. Ramsey and Mr. Ricard, they did an excellent job, and a lot came out of it, and people were encouraged and blessed. This week we're dealing with mental side of health, and the moderator for this evening is no stranger to our assembly of family actually. She's a part of the sports ministry, Mrs. Andrea Titus, and she has two specially invited guests, Mr. Renzo Gaskin and Dr. Ayodele Harper, who's a member of our church as well too. So after I'm opening prayer, I would turn it over to her, and she would chair the session, and then she would get the bios, and we would get into it. Remember, if you are watching, remember wear your house shirt, get your house colors on and sit down, and you can say again which house you in. Obviously we can't have physical sports. We hope to have that next year. In fact, Auntie Andrew, talking about that this morning. So hopefully, if all goes well, those are things you can look forward to next year and more. But right now, we are in our homes, keeping safe, following all the protocols, making it better so that we can be better in the future. So remember, you can wear a house shirt, say what house you're in. I know Pastor Drew is big on Blue House, and she said that she spoke prophetically last Sunday. She said Blue House will win sports next year. So I'm backing her. We're speaking prophetically. But anyway, that being said, put on your shirt, sit down, enjoy yourself, and let's learn about the mental side of health this evening, especially with all that's gone on since last year, February 2020. So I know that our guests have some tools to help us to cope better for all age groups. I look forward to all that's going to be shared this evening. So let's pray and let's dive right in. Dear Lord Jesus, we thank you, Lord God, for such a wonderful day, Lord God, from this morning in your presence, God, with the worship and the message. So such a powerful and timely word this morning from a very own Reverend Joe and Minister Russell and the entire Research Department for an excellent job. Church was just good this morning, God. As we come, Lord God, this evening to learn about health, the mental side of health, God. I pray, God, that we would have your way, God. Those who are tuning, God, I pray, God, bless them. Even those who are tuning after this is finished, God, and would stumble upon it, God, maybe even next year, God, that we get the tools necessary, God, being able to handle the mental side of things, but even more so, realize, oh God, that even though these are good tools, that God, you are still the source. So God, we give you glory, God, we give the honor, and God, we give you all the praise. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. Auntie Andrea, over to you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Ezron. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to part two of the presentations from the Sports Committee. Last week, we looked at the topics diet and exercise, and today we are looking at mental health. Some of us, if not all of us, have been going through some challenging times as a result of COVID-19, and it has forced us to make changes or drastic changes in our lives. This evening, we are looking at the topic mental health. The objective is to arm you with coping strategies to help you and your family navigate during this time. This evening, joining us is Dr. Ayodele Harper and Mr. Renrick Gaskin. First, we will start with the ladies. Dr. Ayodele Harper is a counseling psychologist. She is a lecturer in psychology and internship coordinator of the MSc Counseling Program at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus. She has over 20 years of counseling experience. Her area of specialty is trauma, grief, and disaster relief. And when we speak about trauma, we are including sexual abuse, domestic violence, suicide, sudden deaths, relationship issues, including family matters. She has also spent over 15 years of the frontline pioneering disaster relief management initiatives, DRM, in the Caribbean. Dr. Harper provides a psychosocial support to the Barbados Defense Force field, medical team, and other emergency responders and volunteers in times of disasters, both locally and regionally. Example, the Soufrière volcanic eruption, COVID-19 pandemic, hurricanes such as Dorian, Irma, Maria, And also, some of you may remember the Brickensell cave-in years ago. We also have the Joes River tragedy and many other response efforts. Dr. Harper is a member of the Barbados Society of Psychology and previously served as the vice president. Dr. Harper registered business is called Unshackled Counseling Service. And Dr. Harper is also a member of the People's Cathedral Counseling and Bereavement Support Ministries. Mr. Renwick Gaskin. Mr. Renwick Gaskin is married and he has two children, one girl and one boy, male, female. He's also a registered nurse. He's also a registered mental health nurse. He has a certificate in addiction studies, undergraduate and a master's degree in nursing administration. Mr. Gaskin is currently a tutor at the Barbados Community College in Division of Health Science and Nursing Department. He possesses over 30 years of nursing experience. He has worked at the psychiatric hospital for many, many years. He has a passion for nursing education, mental health promotion, and healthy lifestyle practices, and he is a workout enthusiast. Mr. Gaskin lives by the creed, nothing is more potent than the silent influence of a good example. Here, I want to say thank you so much to Dr. Harper and Mr. Gaskin for accepting our invitation to share with us on the topic mental health. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. Gaskin to share with us on the topic mental health.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure being here. And I can't emphasize the importance of having these conversations at this time. COVID-19 pandemic affecting us in a very profound manner. We all know the public health concerns and all the other concerns as it pertains to health and safety in terms of all the protocols of social distancing. But one area of concern, as we are rightfully going to discuss this evening, is the mental health impact of COVID-19 on all cohorts within our society, all demographics. One cohort in particular, I am going to make special mention of this evening would be the children within the context of the COVID pandemic. Many of you are parents, many of you have nephews, nieces, have neighbors with kids. So all of us have children who've been affected or infected by the COVID virus. This is now becoming an image of reality. Young children as early as a few months of life are being tested for COVID. As the pandemic now begin to surge and we're having different variants affecting our communities and infecting our members of community, the children we now realize are in a precarious position where the virus is not longer a condition or a disease or a virus targeting specifically the elderly is also impacting our young people. Children are not the face of the pandemic, but they risk being among its biggest victims. Well, they are thankful that is not necessarily affecting them directly, at least to date. The crisis is having a profound effect on their well-being, especially on their psychological and social well-being. It's important that we do mental health checks. No one should have to deal with mental health challenges on their own. Far too many children still do. You, parents, adults, their peers, you can change this. It starts with one moment, one conversation, one question. Simple, how are you doing? And to you adults, you might not be getting on well with your child, or you may be experiencing some challenges. Whatever your relationship is currently, is important to show that you always will be there to help your child through any tough times with love and support. And I deliberately made the statement about you might not be getting on well with your children at this time, or one of your child or child at this time, because it's reality. There sometimes you have challenges or struggles in terms of difference of opinion, difference in value systems with your children along the journey to adulthood, during those formative years of development. We do have these challenges as parents and these difference of opinion, and it will surge and it would emerge even more so profoundly within the context of the arrangements, the social arrangements and adjustments that we have to make in order to keep our family and our families safe during this pandemic. Let's talk about one of the glaring issues confronting children presently, the closure of school. The impact of closed schools, the harms attributed to closed schools on the social, emotional, and behavioral health, and the economic well-being and academic achievement impacting on children in both the short term and long term is well known and is significant. The further lack of in-person educational options disproportionately harms low-income and minority children in these living and those living with disabilities. I'm not going to explain that further when I get to when we start to discuss things like finances and poverty and things like homeschooling, not homeschooling, I'm sorry, online schooling, and not having the environment that's conducive to that interaction, because the child living in an impoverished situation might not be able to share the surroundings, or they're living in a circumstance where the house is overcrowded and there's a lot of discussion and dialogue going on within the background of the house. It can be very traumatic for the children to share that home environment with others looking on, like the teachers and the classmates looking into their personal life, looking closely, intimately within their home surroundings, and being able to see the interactions and the dynamics of those type of interactions. Initially, not having to go to school might actually be quite exciting, might have been quite exciting to the child. But 18 months in, 2 years in, that small percentage of young people who are unhappy in their school, which it might be a relief to that group. However, I put it to you that the majority miss out on the opportunity, who enjoy school miss out on the opportunity to socialize and meet others and interact with their peers, and as a result is exacting a whole lot of suffering. Because as you can appreciate, I suspect when the doctor comes on next to do her presentation and she starts to speak about the hidden pandemic among young people in terms of the emotional and psychological health and the struggles that they're enduring as a result. And some of them are very often suffering silently because parents have the assumption that I'm protecting my child by keeping them inside, and I'm using all the safeguards to ensure that they're protected within a public health context. But then the emotional and psychological health, because it's important during that vital stage of development that peer interaction and exchange of thoughts and ideas and the joy of seeing each other, all of these things are no longer happening, have a severe impact on the child's emotional, psychological health. For those experiencing many, and then there's another group of children who are particularly vulnerable within our society. That is those children who are already suffering from mental and behavioral health challenges. These ones are having especially a very difficult time, as along with the fear of contracting the virus, if that fear wasn't enough, then you have another dimension to it, and they're called social distancing. And then the complete disruption of their day-to-day activity, which might compound the impact of COVID. Because these children with these behavioral and these psychological issues might be in an environment where they're monitored within the school environment. They might be attending a special needs school or having support within the context of the schooling environment. And now as a result of COVID and the closing down a lot of these environments, these children now have to be restricted and be in an environment at home without the oversight or the protections of these type of agencies. Some schools now closed, for most young people are directly experiencing social distancing and high levels of isolation. We said that earlier. And the wider social economic dislocation of COVID-19 would cause a lot of anxiety. The school area, as we can appreciate, was a safe zone for many children. In difficult times, history have shown that in difficult times, schools can provide an important safeguard for children who may be at risk for abuse or exploitation. And I'm bringing this into the public forum because I want persons to be aware that as much as you're reflecting and looking at your own home situation, I want you to cast your mind upon other children who exist within our society who are having issues and having challenges. And home is not necessarily always the best or the safest place for many of them. If not, we wouldn't have situations of children running away. We will have cases of children wandering. We wouldn't have interventions of school protective services and guidance counselors, because we know that being at home can be a challenge for some children. And in some instances, going to school offers some degree of relief. For many children and young people, school acts as a protective factor, and at the most basic level as childcare and a safe place during the day. We are concerned that if schools are forced to close for much longer, children and young people who are experiencing abuse and neglect at home, this risk will be magnified. And it's important, here's something to take note of. It is important that those children who do not meet the threshold for social care and intervention, and therefore not entitled to school support, or children who are no longer in school, these children still have to remain on the radar of services and have trusted professionals to turn to in their hour of need. And I'm saying this with the express concern and belief that there's certain social institutions around us, like the church, and these type of institutions have roles to play to make sure that they can be the guardians during this time of crisis and social isolation, to look out and check in on children who are part of their membership, find out what is going on with them, keep them on your radar. It's also important that work continues to provide support outside of school and identify children who may become vulnerable during these times, because we understand the high level of susceptibility and the high risk as it relates to social isolation, that as important institutions, and I'm speaking to the church directly, that as important institutions within our society, that you should cast your mind upon the nation's children and examine these areas for which you think they might be vulnerable, and kind of conceptualize our innovative ways or ideas for some form of engagement, apart from just the parents having to carry this burden alone within the context of our community. And we know the saying, the adage, or it takes a village to raise a child. And even though the child is being isolated, there are certain villagers within our society, being the church, law enforcement, all these other entities have a role to play to make sure that they look in and they check in and they create programs for engagement for children. A concern is information overload. Children are going to be glued to social media, they're going to be glued to the news, they're going to be glued to the televisions, and that's how they interface with the world. But right now, the way the world is shaping its messaging, children are receiving this information. Children's well-being is significantly affected by the COVID-19 outbreak. We know that stories that regularly make the news are the subject of national debate and are important to young children, and they can find them particularly worrying. And that's why it's very important that when news stories unfold, especially traumatic and tragic news stories unfold, and the frequency at which they're unfolding, that parents should work in some way to buffer or to filter the amount of negative or poor media, or bad news that their children are receiving or being stimulated with, because children also have an understanding or trying to find their way within this world, and they would find different news items to be just as distressing as an adult, and they will have their concerns. So as your child sit and internalize all of this information and don't have an outlet to discuss it, or don't have a filter to block it out, these types of information can play on their minds profoundly and create all the other things that we're talking about, like anxiety, depression, fear of the unknown. Within the home environment, as a result of COVID-19, children will be likely spending a lot more time at home. and they may become less satisfied with the home and the space. They might feel like the space is not enough, because stepping away from the home environment and getting out into the wider world, running around in the pasture, running around in the open air, catching the bus, and being free of the closure, the encatchment of the home is something that children look forward to. Yes, when they're finished and complete the day, they're eager to come back in, but very often being at home can create a situation of feeling, a phobic type of feeling of claustrophobia, and the walls are closing in on you. So we can appreciate that being at home now is impacting on the children's mental health within the context that they might feel very restricted, and the space might be feeling very, very, very small. And then it depends on the living arrangement and how many people occupy that space. The consequences of greater time at home may reduce satisfaction with home for a large number of children. So the urge to get out. So that's why you find this phenomenon occurring, that whenever there's a relaxation of the COVID restrictions, you find that children, because of their natural instinct to be around each other and to interface with each other and to rub shoulders literally with each other and to be in each other's faces, you'll find that a large number of them will surge outward or find reasons to tell the parents, I need to get out, I need to go to the mall, I need to go to the cinema. And then you see these pictures and these photographs of large numbers of children congregating. And it's a natural thing for children to want to be with each other. And as a result of restrictions, you will find that a greater urge to converge and to meet and to share and to be up in each other and to be around each other is going to be something, is a phenomenon that will emerge. So it's a difficult time for them. So being at home is a challenge, it's difficult. I know parents are thinking about, I putting all the safeguards in my home, I'm making sure that my child stay home. I heard a very interesting conversation yesterday while I was out and about. I heard a mother said, and then this afternoon I happened to see it as a caption in the newspaper, where fathers are not having an opportunity to interact. Single parent households where the father is visiting, fathers are not having an opportunity to visit the children. And I overheard a lady saying, my child ain't going away, no. My child ain't going nowhere. I ain't even let the father come and visit. She ain't even going over by the father's house. In my mind, I don't think the father's take as much precaution as necessary, and he's be out and about and working. So my child not going anywhere. The fallout of that, I'm hoping that further on in discussion, that will emerge, and we can have some discussion about that. Whether or not the ethical value of that is correct in terms of the mother and her safeguard, or whether or not the loyalty to her child's protection against COVID is validated versus the love of a father for his child and the need for that important development connection. But those are the challenges that are emerging right now in our current environment. The family. As a result of COVID, children will likely be spending more time with their family. We understand that. They spend a lot more time with family members. World Health Organization released some statistics recently suggesting that domestic fallout is on an increase. I don't want to hypothesize why that's happening. I suspect proximity is one of those issues where people have to coexist deliberately with no other choice but have to stay indoors and coexist in a space that they would formerly occupy, where you just leave home to go to work, to go to school and meet on evenings, watch TV, go to sleep, and then continue the same behavior the next day. Now you have to stay indoors for long, long hours, for months and weeks on end. So proximity now becomes an issue. Difference in personalities now emerge. However, families are complicated. And as you know, in the Barbados situation, split living arrangements is one of the issues. Like I talk about the father and the mother living in two different homes and one not having access to the child. Child care provided by grandparents is also another issue now because the vulnerability of the grandparents and the restrictive movement of the child because they might bring the infection home to grandparents. Children can't visit the grandparents and grandparents can't interact with the children because of the likelihood of transmission of COVID. So all of these things are disrupting what is perceived to be the happy family. Multi-generational homes, you have different age groups existing within the household, different urges, different arrangements. The older child might have an opportunity, or the one in the 20s might have an opportunity to go out and socialize with friends, and You really don't have much to say on their independence, and they might seek to exert their independence because they're young adults. They might decide to exit the home, and then the fear of them bringing back home the infection within the household because of the liberty they have to move. All these are issues. Then you have young children who might be going to places like their nurseries and stuff like that, and we know that there's a presence of the Delta variant within some of their nurseries, and there's always an inherent risk that these viruses can come back within the household. So the family now is experiencing some degree of vulnerability as a result. So the many different streams or the many different tracks away from the home where persons going in multiple directions can have an implication and impact on the family, along with the issue of proximity and people having to be around each other for longer periods. Friends, as a result of COVID, distance between friends, which is an important developmental need for children in terms of they want to be with their friends, they have to interact with their friends, that is essential. As a result, children are likely to spend a lot less time with friends. Time spent with friends, particularly without adult supervision, is very important. Not always having the adult oversight is a must. Children must go out and explore the world on their own terms, but they're carrying the attitudes and the values that are being passed on by their parents, and they're making informed decisions. Even if they misstep, they'll have to go and explore the world on their own to especially develop that sense of autonomy. As a result, a lot of time is spent online. And for many, this could be difficult because if the internet access is poor, this also creates further separation from their friends. Not all persons within families, not all families can afford good internet connectivity, access to internet, and this in itself now is becoming a major challenge. Furthermore, many young children have negative experiences online. So those who are getting online and they're interacting with their friends, some of this can be good because they're making that vital connection. However, there's a very real phenomenon occurring in the world of the virtual world, and that is cyberbullying. And some protective oversights. COVID is likely to lead to less oversight of vulnerable young people, where they have unlimited access to the internet while parents have to conduct and carry out the business. And because of the school situation, the predatory activity that occurs on the internet would have been restricted. But now that children are on the computer even so often, and in between classes, there's an opportunity to go and surf the web, and it's the only way of direct engagement. And the protections that schools and professional oversight would offer, you have situations where the predators are aware of the fact that there's a greater number of children utilizing the social media platforms. So you find that your children will be preyed upon within these forums. So be aware that your children will be preyed on by predators, and have persons who will be seeking for sexual and criminal intent will seek to target your children. So it's important that parents should monitor their children's interactions. And because children are so eager to have some form of interaction, sometimes these persons on the other end can misrepresent who they are, catfish you call it, and create a persona that is quite appealing, like a personality, a music personality, somebody of importance within society, and try to catfish and use this person's identity to lure your children into a discussion. And very often, sometimes you have to be very aware of the statuses that your children post online, which expresses their particular emotional state. I'm so lonely, I'm so bored. So you have to really kind of closely monitor those interactions when your children make these assertions online, because predators are paying attention to what your children are posting. So being aware of online issues, you must check your children's social media online platforms. Even if why should your children block you from becoming one of their friends? So you create an account and become their friend so you can monitor their content directly. Then if they don't block you, then if they block you, then you can ask the simple question, what is you have to hide? Why am I not one of your friends online? You try not to be, you do say embarrassing things or whatever so that they would have an issue with you being there. But being there for just the sake of just peeping every once in a while and monitoring, I suggest that that's important. But try not to be overly involved or overly engaging, like posting the baby pictures while they're sitting on the party as babies and sharing it with their friends and stuff like that. Then you have then that's one of the that's one of the reasons why they would book you off. But have a presence. Talk to your teens about the time they spend online. Also talking about staying safe from harassment and being bullied online. Assure them that if they're in trouble or have made a mistake online, that you're there for them and you'll help them no matter what. Be open about your own feelings. Show them how you deal with stress, can be an example for them, and talk about how you dealt with problems when you were at that age. So as the children begin to have their challenges, even though you don't necessarily fully understand the dynamics of the new environment online, you can still speak to them about relationship issues when it comes to things like bullying, or a friend just blocking them and not interacting with them anymore. Because these are real issues that young people are being confronted with. Or people making comments about their appearance because they're more out there, more persons are looking in and seeing their posts and whatever the case may be. These are issues that you can bring up, not necessarily in a confrontational way, but you can bring these issues up and talk about your own experience with persons who weren't necessarily your favorite persons and the things that they would say to you, how you managed to overcome that and what strategies you would have utilized so that you can speak to your children in very real and realistic terms so they would know, well, look, and you don't necessarily try to shove your idea or your idealisms down their throat. But if you can allow them to know that you were once a child too, and you're having consideration for what they're experiencing or what they're going through, and by sharing your experience, they listen. I find very often they listen. They might not behave those door, they're listening. But sometimes when they're placed in a particular precarious situation and they have nothing else to fall back on, but the thought that the conversation that they have with you, sometimes those conversations can hold them in good stead and guide them through a very difficult time. So you never really stop talking, but it's how you talk. Some health issues being confronted by children, you can appreciate that there's some children who suffer with ADHD. The containment of the house and the small and the restrictive environment can cause some serious challenges for these type of children. So you must find a way to allow them the opportunity to go out and have a run around and move around. You can't keep them inside the house 24/7. You must give them the opportunity to run and walk and hop and skip. And even if they converse with another child from a socially safe distance, that is important. Let them go into the park, let them exercise, let them get out, let them interact. These things are important. Create some form of physical activity for those children who reside within the home. Baby, catch, playing ball. But I suspect last week you would have had presentations about exercise and diet, and a lot of these things would have been echoed. We know that children who have special education needs at this time, because of the lack of professional supervision and interaction, it can be challenging for the parent. Parents have to be very careful too. Let's face it, not all of us have brilliant children. Not all of us have the patience very often when our children are trying to learn new information or internalize new information. And very often the duress that the child encounter is further magnified by the attitude of the parent. So if the child is not grasping 1 and 1 is 2, and you're impatient or you're embarrassed that your child is not, you discover that your child is not necessarily Albert Einstein, but then because of your expectation, you begin to come down on the child heavily, embarrass the child in front of the teacher, scold the child in front of his schoolmates, lose patience with the child. We have to be very careful with these type of behaviors because these type of things can affect profoundly on your children's mental health. And I know that quite a few parents, from my experience, are very surprised by the amount of patience that teachers have what teachers have to put up on a daily basis. I've seen the posts where parents are asking, oh my God, when we can have face-to-face school again. Oh my God, I'm going crazy with all my children at home. I'm seeing these posts. From a mental health perspective, I happen to take these type of posts very seriously, even though I think sometimes parents are making mention of these things within a satirical type of friendly type of humorous type of way. In my mind, it is all indication of the burden that some persons would be carrying, and as a result, to find a way to vent these type of frustrations, whether the frustration is mild, moderate, or severe. The fact is they're venting these things pertaining to interacting with their own children. They need a break, they need some relief. And the same way parents need a break and relief from their children, it's healthy to have these breaks. Children also need a break and relief from their parents. So be mindful of, be aware of your expectations. Be mindful that when you share your expectations, that you do not necessarily come down on your child in such an aggressive and harsh manner that you embarrass them, that you humiliate them within their friends. And education is one of those things that very often children suggest that they find to be a difficult road to negotiate with their parents, especially when the child is not necessarily learning at the rate for which the parent assumed they should be learning at. Money can be an issue within some families as a result of some people losing their jobs. Things can happen in a very serious way within some households. Children are home, they're going into the refrigerator more often. They're taking juices from off the shelf more often. They're eating cornflakes. They're eating these things. They're using things quite often now within the household. And for a household where there's contraction of the income, disposable income, parents losing jobs and stuff like that, these become very real issues. And poverty just looming on their door can create some tension between parents and children, and restrictions, further restrictions about not pulling open the fridge door so often, don't go in the fridge door sightseeing, don't leave the fridge open, who drink the juice, who eat this, and these type of issues can emerge within a household, especially when money becomes a major challenge. School closure, I just want to bring this to your attention, that there are some children who rely very much on going to school because school meals was free. And as a result, getting a warm meal at school was an important thing for some children in terms of nutritional status. And I want to put this one out there, that the government and institutions such as the church, sometimes speaking directly to a church this evening, should ensure that free school meal vouchers are easily attainable without significant time lag, and that a valid exchange in a range of accessible shops or food outlets be provided for children. As I said, it takes a village to raise a child, and there are some agencies and some institutions that are so well established that you think they have the ability at this time to come up with some innovative way of looking after the members of their congregation's children, members of their wider community's children. And one such area of focus would be the nutritional status of children, because as we know, as income becomes less, burden of feeding children becomes greater. And as a result, we already have some persons who are already in a destituted or very vulnerable situation. So I would beseech the church and other institutions or members of the congregation who represent many other entities to let these type of ideas and innovations level some degree of volunteerism or support be given to our nation's children. Children's choices very often are impeded because as a result of COVID-19 and all the isolation and social distancing, autonomy is an important part of a child's development. But now with the oversight and the restrictions, certain independent decisions that children would make while out on their own, like I have to walk this particular road as opposed to walking that particular road, catching this or catching that bus, taking the minibus, and all these independent autonomous decisions that they make. And they would say that, oh, mommy, you know, I got the wrong bus this evening, but I was able to catch the other bus and come home. All these things, even though you're concerned, you can see that within your child's face, there's a pride about this type of accomplishment. And as a result of COVID and the shutdown, a lot of these situations and autonomous decision making and choices that they're allowed to make, these things are no longer there. So as a result, that important building of the child's autonomy and independence now becomes paramount. So it's important that with this awareness that the idea is to make an independent choice pertaining to themselves and be involved in decision making pertaining to themselves, even with the oversight and the guidance of the parent, is important. So it's important then that if they're all closed in and we're all shut in together, allow them to be part of the decision making process. If you can decide that you're going to paint the house, have the input. What color you think is important? Let's go to the supermarket or the hardware store and get a brush. Choose a brush for yourself, because in your participation and involvement, choose a brush that you can help do the lining of the floor. You can help paint around your room or whatever the case, but have them involved in the decision making. This helps to nurture and build that independence that is so important to them during these formative years of development. But I'm quite sure that the next presenter would perhaps elaborate some more on some of these areas. Prospects of the future is another very important thing. I've heard persons ask the question, oh my God, when are we ever going to come out of COVID? I've heard a young person express this sentiment way before we had the situation with the Delta virus, when the virus seemed to be affecting older persons more profoundly. I remembered hearing a young person saying, you imagine the older persons lived their life, they lived a full life. They went out and enjoyed their life, get diabetes, get hypertension, and enjoy their life to the fullest. And now that COVID is upon us, they want to restrict us young people from doing the things we want to do because it's them that are particularly vulnerable and susceptible to this virus. So we can't go out and party, we can't go out and enjoy ourselves because these older persons make this mistake of treating themselves badly, getting these chronic illnesses, and now because of their life choices, we now have to be contained and restrained. I've heard young persons say that in a forum they went into, believing that the COVID was not affecting them. It was indeed infecting and more harmful to the older persons. And now as a result, they're paying a price because of the older person's vulnerability. And they're assuming that the vulnerability that the older persons have right now, if it is a chronic illness, is based on their particular choices and lifestyle. And I've heard this came from a young person. I was really surprised when I heard it. But then when I went around the room, quite a few of them expressed that very similar sentiment. They're frustrated, they're angry, they don't believe that they're to blame. They believe that the adults in this world we're perpetuating a lot of the issues they're experiencing. And as a result, they don't have to suffer all the restrictions. I just see something in the chat. Hey, Mr. Gaskin, you're almost finished. Oh, yes, let me just wind up. Another 5 minutes, Pastor. That's okay with you? I don't mind you coming into give me a voice at this point. How much more time I have?
Really let Miss Harper come on in a minute now, because when I hear her part, because she has a very important aspect to share as well too.
Okay, great. All right, let me just conclude, and hopefully in the discussion we can share some more thoughts then. And my last part of this presentation is that as children begin to look towards the future, illustrated here is what they're hearing about the future is we're having one variant that's going to be more deadlier, then there's another variant, and if we continue, we can have even worse case scenarios of more infectious variants. So down the road seems to be dismal in some instances. Are we going to have an opportunity to get outside again? Are we going to have an opportunity to see our friends and interact again? So in some cases, the outlook or the feelings of life in the future or in the long term, a lot of children don't see themselves emerging at the other end anytime very soon. As a result, it's creating this whole feeling of loneliness. It's feeling this whole feeling of what the heck? Despair. At this time, I would like to give way to my next presenter. Our next presenter. Time is very short, and mental health is a very passionate topic, so I would give way to Dr. Harper.
And before you start, if you have any questions, you could feel free to put in the chat. I think
Okay.
I think has like 27 minutes, so she could go. But feel free to put in the chat, and we'll answer it when she's finished her presentation. So over to you, Ayo.
I was wondering if I should really go because Gaskin covered everything, and whilst he was doing that, I'm there deleting slides, and I'm like, what am I supposed to present on? So he was right. He would cover everything. There was no need for me, but I'll try. I'll try to take it from another spin with whatever slides I have left. Okay. All right.
No problem.
So thank you for having me. I think I'll make mine more general. So we're seeing with in Barbados, we're going through the worsening surge of a COVID-19. All right. And oh, sorry, my slides. Sorry, I did not share. Could you tell me if you're seeing my screen, my presentation?
Yes, you're seeing it.
Okay. All right. So we've been bombarded by some of these headlines in the news. So with Barbados going through a worsening surge of COVID-19, a watchful eye, we have to keep a watchful eye on the harmful effects, the climate of fear, increased levels of stress, anxiety, uncertainty, and grief have generated among individuals and families. However, in most recent times, everything has been chaotic, out of control. We've had multiple losses and have experienced this in different areas of our lives. For instance, since the emergence of coronavirus over 20 months ago, Barbados has faced its most challenging times ever. First, we had to deal with the shutdowns or quarantine. And although these were very necessary and they had severe economic cost to businesses, and as a result, the general population suffered. So I'm just giving you a background of what's happening and why people are so stressed, they're grieving, they're anxious and stuff like that, okay? So right now we're experiencing a continued spike in the positive COVID-19 cases and deaths are on the increase. But amidst this pandemic, we also had to deal with other crises as well. We had the ash fall in the May eruption in St. Vincent volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And then we also had Hurricane Elsa in July. And currently, we also have the division that is being caused among the people of Barbados regarding the issues surrounding vaccination. And this pandemic has resulted in socio-economic crisis and psychological distress among Barbadians. The pandemic has also forced into open awareness that there are a multitude of losses that garner no memorial placard, yet they beg for acknowledgement and attention from the extraordinary abstract loss of certainty and security to the more concentrated loss of business or a job, without which so many without the jobs, many of us lose our sense of identity and status. We feel a sense of shame and humiliation as a result of this. In addition, there are feelings of sadness or slowness that are not even recognized as grief, because disruptions of life can disorient anyone and there is nothing specific to pin that mood on. Nor do we have any rituals or routines through which to channel grief for such losses, because people do not look at it as loss or significant loss, other than those that are loss that may be as a result of bereavement. You heard me, I had an entire day presenting, so I'm tired now. And so for many, grief itself goes on the ground. We sweep it under a carpet where the pain of loss cannot be ameliorated or probed for meaning as it must. And too often it lurks in the shadows as a sense of alienation for most people. Okay. So we have all of these things happening. Missed milestones, etc. But during the COVID shutdown, it was a time of great revelation of dark secrets being exposed in homes and much grief being expressed as people long for life to return to normal. You know, as Mr. Gaskin said, the way we were operating, it's no longer the same. We long for normality, we long for some stability, but everything is fluid at this point of time, and it's just chaotic. So there were reported cases of sexual and domestic violence, children missing their friends as well, but I'm not going to go into that because Mr. Gaskin did, and I did not get that slide deleted. Broken relationship, their extramarital affairs being exposed. Men, just as he had mentioned, also complained of being unable to visit their children. And I think I read about that in the papers only this morning. And partners not thinking about the effects that these things would have on children. All right. So the young people are suffering as a result of the choices that their parents are making, even if it is out of spite. We also have to take into consideration, so these are some of the effects as I speak. These are some of the effects. You can go through the chart. So the elderly as well, they experience feelings of depression and some resort to overeating or not eating at all, as they feel that they are being punished, as their movements also have been restricted. They also feel that they're also being blamed for some of the attitudes as a consequence of their choices, as Gaskin said. They feel like they're being blamed for all the widespread COVID experience. We also have, and I'm just talking off my head from here on out, eviction notices that are being served. It is both the landlords and the tenants as well that need each other to survive, but everyone is suffering. COVID has been no respecter of person. It has cross boundaries. There's no one that was exempted from it. Everyone was affected in some way or the other. Okay, so we're not talking about loss and grief only as it pertains to the death of loved ones, because we know that bereavement itself has caused tremendous strain for persons as well. A lot of persons were not allowed to go and function within the environment and to perform certain rituals that they would perform for funerals and to say their final goodbyes as a result of the COVID pandemic. They were deprived of these moments, these special moments, to say their final goodbyes. Okay, so it would have generated lots of stress, lots of anxiety, lots of frustration, feelings of anger, helplessness. There's so many things that persons would have gone through. The effects of COVID-19 as a result of the pandemic results in feelings of depression, pervasive feelings of isolation, brokenness, helplessness, and despair. People, we also read, and I'm aware as well of young people having suicidal ideations. There are older people as well that also contemplate acts of suicide or the thought of committing suicide because they do not know how to control their environment. They feel that the control that they had when there was stability, what they perceived as stability in the past has gone. There's nothing that is normal anymore. So there's this there's this great urgent need to bring the past back into the present, okay, to recapture those moments. People believe that they did not have enough time to recuperate from one loss after the next. Things are so fluid, everything is just out of control. No one knows what to do. They're just throwing their hands up in the air, feelings of hopelessness as well. So in addition to the loss of members of family members as well, we have persons being afraid of, based on all social media is presenting to them about what choices they have regarding the vaccination, and it's causing division among our people as well. Persons are saying that there's a need to rely on the science, and then there's some people who overlooking the fact that we need to be respecters of persons' individual choices. And so there's that division among our people, and it's causing lots of anxiety. It is also causing persons to lose trust in the government, in their family members. They feel like if they're some people feel like with the division in the family that, it is one person against another, and there's a sense of betrayal going on as well. Young persons have also engaged in self-harming There's the, that I can't even remember now. I'm talking, as I said, I'm talking off in my head. If I had mentioned, there's the whole thing about sexual abuse, alcohol and substance abuse. There's the inability for young persons to actually concentrate, and there's a decrease in performance, academic performance as well, because the way in which they're being asked to learn as well, the online learning platform has presented some challenges as well, whether they have all the necessary tools to work with, or whether they fully understand, whether they're tech savvy in terms of parents having to interact with these individuals as well. It is also stressful because now if they did not understand how to operate the laptop, if they're like me, then they're not tech savvy, it poses a challenge. If they're at a stage where they do not also understand the level of learning the students are, the children are at right now, it also poses a problem. It causes them some embarrassment, and because they do not know, there's that inability to concentrate. There's decreased productivity as well, because if you're working in an environment in which there's a lot of confusion, you're gonna be distracted. So there's that lack of this there's that inability to concentrate, which leads to poor work performance. Then there's the inability to access, if you're not, some persons with the safe zone and stuff like that, they're concerns about being able to access healthcare services if you're not fully vaccinated. That's causing a lot of that is generating a lot of fear among our people as well. The young people are living in regret that they're unable to celebrate milestones such as graduations. They're not able to go and do face-to-face graduations anymore. And it's causing them lots of grief. They're not able to interact with their friends, as Gaskin would have mentioned, but I guess there's going to be some overlap. There's also the fear of not being able to get the suitable jobs for which they're qualified. The education might also be interrupted if they do not have the finance to continue at the university setting. So there's a lot of frustration and fear surrounding all of this. In terms of the adults, we may have young people here who have parents who are also teachers, who are also in the health profession, who provide a service to our country. And as a result of that, those young persons would live in fear of their family members being hurt, especially with the recent news of the staff at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital being affected. In terms of teachers as well, it is also very stressful for some of us because the online platform is not as easy or simple to navigate as most persons believe. It is quite stressful, and so there's a lot of anxiety around approaching the whole learning process. So I would have spoken about children, parents being able to supervise their children at home. There's the young people who are also, I'm trying not to repeat what Gaskin said, and that's throwing me off a little. They're mourning the loss of face-to-face connection with their friends and robbed opportunities. If we're thinking about older persons now, policies and procedures at work would have changed, and it feels like they're always trying to find a balance, all right? And shifting and adapting all the time. Everything is just out of control. And we went from being able to gather as many people as we wanted to, with many people as we wanted to in family settings or even other social settings, only to be told that we can only socialize with or gather with a certain number of people, say up to 10 approximately. So you guys can read again about what anxiety, because these are the topics I'm actually focusing on: anxiety, fear, and stress, but we're not going to go into anxiety as a disorder. So even as we go into restaurants and enjoy our night out, we can't do those things anymore. Life as we know it is no longer the same. So I was also going to mention about the children having to be in an unstructured environment at home. but that was also discussed. We also know that families are in a state of fear with as it relates to not being employed. Some members not being employed. There's unemployment. There's persons would have lost jobs. Some persons would have had financial difficulties where, okay, even if you were still retained by your employers, you were working at a reduced cost. And so children would also have that fear that their basic needs would not be met. And how would they be perceived by others? Persons knowing that they're no longer working, and based on the value that they would have placed on the job that they held, would experience that shame and humiliation and regret and sense of security, because for them that meant the world to them. Their position meant the world to them. It would also cause problems within families as well, where men, if they're no longer to able, let me see, it's somewhere here, if they're no longer to provide for the family members, they may feel emasculated by their partners. It may lead to even the eviction, the domestic violence within the home may cause persons to be evicted from homes, and that leads to homelessness. So all of these things, the honeymoon, those persons who were so excited at the initial stage when we had COVID and there was a lockdown, persons who were longing to have relationships and closeness and quality time with their families or partners, realized that after a couple of weeks or stuff like, or anything like that, that they began to get fed up. It was like, you're invading my space, I need space. They did not realize how important having a life that was separate and distinct from their partners instead of being fused was, until they were forced to actually stay in one environment and there was no place to run. So they had to confront things that they never really confronted before. As Gaskin said, there were personalities that came out, there were expectations that were not met, and there were lots of things that were going on. There would have been, people also needed to address health issues as well. So most, as I said before, most persons would not have realized that grief was the underlying cause behind most of these things people would be experiencing, in terms of the anger and the fear and the frustration, the sense of alienation, the need for self-harming and stuff like that. It is just a result of the brain just saying to itself, I do not understand this. I was accustomed to doing things one way. The brain like predictability, so it's no longer, a life is no longer predictable. It knows how to deal with things in the past, but suddenly it's being asked to deal with things that it has no control over. So it cannot bring equilibrium to how we are actually functioning anymore. So people are uncertain about how the future will be perceived. So in dealing with it, some people may resort to ineffective ways of coping, such as substance abuse. Some people will just cry. They may be easily start to become hypervigilant. There's a lot of apathy as well. Some people may think that they're invincible. They can do whatever they please. Some people become accident proof. There's anger and aggression that is being exhibited, and the underlying factor that is driving that is fear. So based on all the stress that persons may be encountering, they will find that they have difficulty in focusing, memory problems, disorientation and confusion. Socially, they feel isolated, they're blaming, difficulty in giving or accepting support because of the pride, all right? So what causes anxiety? Fear of getting COVID-19, fear of losing loved ones and being alone as well, high levels to exposure to social news and media, disruption in the daily routines, which, and we mentioned this before, online schooling and working from home, difficulty disengaging from virus and variants, job losses and unemployment. The inability to leave the house because of COVID-19 fears. I'm not sure how much time I have, so I'm trying to speed up. Frequent checking for symptoms despite not being in high-risk scenarios, avoiding social situation, events, or even people. These are some of the common symptoms of anxiety, which is, and I would have mentioned them before as well in the chart above. So I'm not going to go through that. And as I said, we're not dealing with anxiety disorders, so I'm not going to that. How, sorry?
Auntie, hold on. You stop sometime. You go ahead. You don't have to rush everything through. Take your time. We still
Okay.
have a little time.
Okay, well, I'll just go straight to how do we cope with stress and
Okay.
anxiety. So I will see that we had sudden deaths in the family. We're dealing with work stress, ongoing world of finances, COVID-19. We just banging our head as Bart Simpson is doing right now. We just don't know. We just not, we can't focus. That's the main and most important thing. Is the inability to focus and try to make things right, try to get things in order. Everything is just out of control. So how do we deal with this? And what activities can we implement to bring some stability to all of this? We can focus on things that we can control, such as your thoughts and behaviors. If you know you can do something, don't try to do it. Just stay within your range, because if you try to do something miraculous and it does not work out, you're going to go into a tailspin again. So keep the big picture in mind. Humankind will survive this. We're going to survive this. Let us remain optimistic, you know, and know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Remember that the size of the news coverage may not equal the size of the threat. Let wisdom and logic guide you. Turn to a reputable source for your news. Control how often you check the news. Model peaceful behavior for those around you. Evaluate your own health behaviors and be a model for others, including children. If you're feeling isolated, maintain digital connections with people, and I will go into that, especially for the young people. Don't let fear influence your decisions, such as hoarding supplies, because you know, with us, when we first experienced the lockdown, before it was instituted, we were like, oh my God, we have to get this, and we were just out there just buying more stuff than we actually needed, even though we were warned that things would still be available to us, but no one wanted to take that chance. If we really, really want to reduce the stress, the grief, and the anxiety that we're actually feeling, we have a responsibility to ourselves. We need to adhere to protocols. So what we need to do is to adhere to those protocols of wearing our proper PPE equipment, gears. Then we wash our hands, we avoid large crowds, we social distance. And as adults, we should know that. But even for us, because we are living, we have to take culture into consideration as well when we behave and do certain things. It is not that persons may not necessarily want to adhere to the protocols, but our culture is so deeply embedded in us that we may forget sometimes. And at this stage, we know we cannot forget, but we're a hugging society. And when we see each other, we want to greet persons. And I know one of the reasons why I haven't been in church recently is because I just want to be able to hug people, and just knowing that I can't hug people is just tearing me apart. All right. So if I know that that might be difficult, because as soon as I see someone, I get excited, maybe I just need to stay within my living quarters and protect myself. So for those of you who might find the situations very, very overwhelming, and you can't deal with it at home, remember persons who, the adults may not just be parents, but they may be parents, but they have jobs that put them in high stress situations. You may have persons who, parents who are part of the first responders team, and therefore you're always living in fear of how they can be affected. And then not only that, when they go to stressful environments and they return home to you, you guys are expecting them to just respond to you as per normal, but you have no clue as to how their day would have gone. They too may be asking themselves and having concerns. Did I take all the necessary precautions that was necessary for me to come home and know that I am safe with my family? Are they being protected? Have I done sufficient? Did I take off my mask? Many medical professionals have expressed those concerns to me, because it's like, yes, it's part of them, but yet at the same time, there's always that voice of doubt that lingers behind, that asks those questions. So what we need to do as adults, have a buddy system. Make sure that there's someone there to support you, to say, well, yes, you did have on your protective gears. You did do this. You did adhere to this protocol. What if it is needed? You you make sure that there's someone there to support you. All right. For example, even those persons at the hospital who were assaulted, they will need to know that there's protection there for them as well. So maybe making sure that persons would have security available to transport, to follow them from the hospital to their cars, to their vehicles, in order to make sure that they get home safe. All right. For the young people, talk it out, talk about stressful situations, find someone. If you're not comfortable talking to your family members, find someone that you can talk to. If you do not need to seek professional help, find someone that you can confide in, someone you know you trust, and that would help you as well from falling away. Because especially now that we're in a church setting and most things are being done online, you may find that church attendance may drop for young people, but it may be a case where they're actually logging on by Zoom or whatever online platform is that's available. However, there is still concern out there for young converts who would still need to have that kind of support. And as a result of that, we need maybe the same buddy system should also be implemented. And I know People's Cathedral is doing their very best because they also have that group and they maintain contact with persons. So I know that they're doing a very good job at providing support for young persons as well as adults. Engage in more prayer and worshiping and reading of your Bible to reduce that level of anxiety. After all, I know this is on another slide. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And then there are other scriptures in the Bible that I will go on to show why we need to actually depend on prayer and remaining connected to the vine. I think above all, the science and everything, it is just the need for our connectedness to the vine, because that outbeats everything. I don't think that there's anything more important. There's no greater physician. There's no better psychologist. There's no better mental health professional. There's no better support system than our Heavenly Father, okay? So I believe strongly in the power of prayers, in worshiping and reading the Bible. And recently I have found that I have become so busy myself that I have not been able to actually sit down and meditate on the Word of God because of how fast life is going. It seems like a fast-paced life. It's like a roller coaster of events going on. But I have also been able to use the audio Bible to listen to, but nothing beats actually reading the Word and then internalizing everything for yourself. You can also engage in exercise or swimming. These are practical things people do. You can use journaling, write down your thoughts. What were some of your thoughts, okay? When you're journaling, it helps you to talk about your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, what you would have done, so that when you look back during this time, when you look back, you can see if there was any growth between the time of the pandemic and when it actually ends. If it ends, we do not know. But we have to pray and hope that things work out. Okay, these are some techniques that we can also use to reduce stress and anxiety. It's called 5-4-3-2-1 technique, in which you use all of your senses to remain grounded. Okay, so when you find those negative thoughts coming in and those challenging emotions manifesting, just try to focus on being grounded, using the senses. For example, if we were in a session where I was doing a workshop, I would have asked you to think about 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, 1 thing that you can taste. But it is not just about looking at those things, but it is looking at all the minute details that these things present. And once you're doing that, it takes your mind off of the negative thoughts and emotions that you would have been feeling, because you have to now invest and channel your energy into focusing on something specific, like texture, okay, the fleck on the or the color of a carpet, the flecks in the carpet, or the humming of your computer, or the sound that the fan is making, things that you never paid attention to before. Those things also help you to reduce the anxiety that you're experiencing. So holding objects in your hand, such as a rock or a leaf in the hand, listening to the noise of the traffic outside, smelling the roses, okay? All of these things would help you to just come down off of the high that you're on. Take a look, listen to this, your surroundings, okay? Listen, do you hear the birds? Do you hear the dogs barking? Can you hear the machinery or the traffic? If you hear people talking, what are they saying? Do you recognize the language? Do you hear the sounds of the ocean? Use the ocean as a way to just de-stress. As the waves come in, you look at how they come in, then you listen to how it sounds, and as it comes in, it would seem to be coming in to collect your problems. And as the waves go out, it would seem to be taking your problems away with it. So get in touch with nature. I'm not going to play these videos, but breathing exercises also help. We can go into more details about it later on, but I'm just going to highlight them now. Breathing exercises help. Exercising itself helps. Do a few exercises or stretches. You can try jumping up and down, using jumping ropes, jogging in the spot, or stretching different muscles group one by one. But what we want you to do when you're doing these things would be to pay attention to how your body feels with each movement. And when your hands or feet touch the floor or move through the air, how it's going, what's happening to you, how does the floor feel against your feet and hands. If you jump the rope, listen to the sound of the rope in the air and when it hits the ground. Those things help to reduce negative thoughts, reduce the emotions. And I have to keep stressing that because it is true. No, I don't want a video. And even though when you practice these things, it may not seem to be working at first, just remember once you begin to take a proactive stance by practicing doing these exercises or activities, it will prepare you for the times when the negative thoughts and emotional challenging emotions begin to overcome you. So it's just like exercising to lose weight. When you start exercising, the first few weeks, you don't see anything happening, but eventually you see something happening. It's the same with these exercises or techniques that you're going to be using. If you want to help your memory, and these exercises are not just for young people, but for the adults as well. You play a memory game. Look at a detailed picture or photograph. Look at something that is very busy for 5 to 10 seconds. Then turn that photograph upside down and recreate that photograph in your mind. And in as much detail as possible, try to identify some of the things that you would have seen. So this is a scene here. This is something that you would have, as I said, if we were in a workshop, I would have asked you to partake in it. Okay, so the beach as well. This is another beach memory game. We look at this scenario here and we can immediately list certain things that we're seeing. But then what I want you to do, you can do this with your friends as well, just to make sure you remain connected with them. Ask them what they would have seen. And then as they list what they would have seen, you can then add something to that picture. And then the next person will do this, continue the same process where they identify all the things that they would have seen, and then add what you would have seen, and then they in turn would add something else, and then the cycle continues until everyone in your group would also do the same. Soothing techniques as well. If you want to deal with your emotions as well, picture the voice or the face of someone you love. If you feel upset or distressed, visualize someone speaking something positive in your life. Imagine their face or think of what their voice sounds like. Imagine them telling you that the moment is tough, but that you'll get through it. And it's not what you say, it's how you say what you say and the timing in which you say things that makes the difference. In a lot of situations, we tend to be very harsh on ourselves. We don't practice self-kindness, and we need to do so, especially under these stressful times. We're so consumed by all that we're going through that it begins to become like self-hate, self-disgust for self and things like that. And we don't need to do that. We need to just focus on something positive within ourselves. So be kind to yourself. Say compassionate phrases like, I'm having a rough time, but I'll make it through. Be encouraging to yourself. I'm stronger than I think, and I can move through this pain. I'm trying very hard and I'm doing my very best, and that's all I can do, and God will do the rest. Saying it either aloud or in your head or as many times as possible will help to reduce the anxiety that you're experiencing. Sit with your pet at home. If you have furry creatures like I do, try to find out as you hold them, just try to touch their fur and try to figure out what is it, how it feels. You want to deal with texture now. And as you deal with these things, you take your mind because you're distracted. And that's what these grounding techniques do. They distract you from things that are in the past that's affecting you and bringing you to the here and now. So you're focusing on what's happening right now, not the past that's giving you the challenge in terms of nasty thoughts, negative thoughts, debilitating thoughts, nothing. So you're dealing with the here and now. So if you can just focus on those beautiful little foreign creatures and touch their hair, you will be able to focus on something else and bring down that stress level. So for the young people and for us as well, we have the opportunity to interact by the phone, video chats, FaceTime, Zoom, or any technological one that we have available to us, even while we're social distancing. So we need to utilize them. You can play games with others through a video game service or apps on your phone. You can send cards, notes, or letters to bring cheer to those you are missing. Ask yourself, when was the last time you took to send a mail, a regular mail? Maybe just for now, just because you want to do something creative and innovative and different, maybe you should try that. So when you write, also in the write down ideas of what you would like to do with others when social distancing is lessened, and that's part of the journaling. Remind yourself that this is a temporary situation and you're contributing to making the world safe for family and friends you long to be with. So as you focus on activities that are less anxiety provoking, you can clean your house or your room, dance, you can sing, you can watch funny movies, go swimming, do Zoom stay at home parties to celebrate special occasions such as graduations, birthdays. You can do baking competition or cooking competitions online as well. You watch family movies as a group with your friends as well. You can do all those little things. Exercise regularly promotes a feeling of euphoria or happiness, and it could eradicate feelings of anxiety. Well, we would have spoken about nature before, getting in touch with it. Okay, we did that. Okay, to counteract the psychological impact of job loss, we can, as people who love each other as a church body, and even if you're not a member of a church, but you just have human kindness resonating in you, you can provide community support, be each other's keeper, provide social support to your neighbors or anyone else that may be in need. Do not wait for them to come to you. You offer to help, because persons, remember, they were in a position once to provide for themselves and had that sense of independence, and now they're no longer, they may not be in a place where they feel independent, but more dependent, and it's causing them that shame and humiliation. So what you can do is to just offer them something. Do not wait for them to do it. In terms of persons who are unemployed and don't know what to do, find out, get factual information regarding NIS, severance pay, benefits, any benefit that is due and owing to you. Make sure you talk to someone who can provide you with that kind of information. See what stimulus and social security, social protection packages are available. Get facts on the banks, because we know at this point of time, some persons are lagging behind in their mortgages and credit card payments and stuff like that. And the banks have become our best friends. They call us relentlessly. And even though you may explain to them 1,000 times that you're unable to pay because of probably the way in which you're being paid now, maybe it may not be on a monthly basis anymore, or it may be on a reduced basis, but you are not able to meet your banking commitments, you'll need to make sure that you talk to someone who can also find a way to provide customer assistance program packages for you to be able to navigate this process as well. So anxiety in the Bible, if you thought that there were no persons in the Bible that did not experience anxiety, you're wrong, because Job did. And so did Jonah. and so did Elijah. And those are the only three that I'm going to be mentioning, okay? But always remember at the end of the day that God has not given us that spirit of fear, but love, power, and a sound mind. So there are biblical ways of coping with anxiety. Remember our Psalm 23, verse 4, 55:22, Isaiah 40:31, Isaiah 40:10. Do not fear because I'm with you. Don't be afraid, for I'm your God. I will strengthen you. I will surely help you. I will hold you with my righteous strong hand. You know, and all of these here, cast your burden on the Lord. He will support you. God will never let the righteous be shaken. Let's just remember these things when we are scared and fearful and feeling helpless and hopeless. Let us remember whose we are and who we are, and whose hands we're in, times we're in, okay? When Psalm 94, verse 19, when my anxieties multiply, your comforting calms me down. Psalm 56, verse 3, whenever I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. 1 Peter 5:7, throw all your anxiety onto him because he cares about you. Philippians 4:6, don't be anxious about anything, rather bring up all your requests to God in your prayers and petitions along with thanksgiving, with giving thanks, yes. All right, and there are other biblical affirmation here, but as I said, press for time. But all bad did not come out of COVID. What good did come out of COVID? We now have an appreciation for quality time with family, friends, even the church, education, and work. For example, here is a youngster saying to his pastor, I want to show I appreciate you, pastor. How about me giving you a ride? I mean, he's just a child, but think about it. Probably couple months ago, he would have probably been running and said, I don't want to go to church. But here he is now having appreciation for the pastor. So no longer do we have any complacency regarding work, education, or teachers. We may have some struggles and challenges, but we do not have that complacency where people are asking for sick days. More people are asking for asking questions such as, when are we going to return to school or to work? And as you can see, based on the confusion here, this actually summarizes all that I would have spoken about when you're working from home and how the environment is not conducive for learning, as well as for working parents as well. So look at all the confusion is in here. So this speaks to the decreased productivity, the decreased performance, and you know, all the confusions that I would have discussed before. So we would have also found that people are now spending and investing wisely in their future. For example, we're no longer buying shoes that we do not need, in buying clothes that we cannot wear. So because we have too much as it is, suddenly what was perceived as too little, they're too much, because the shoes are dry rotting. And it's quite embarrassing when we leave home and go places and then you realize that you're hopping, the shoe is no longer working. So we're also in a survival mode and finding innovative and creative ways to stay alive. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramsey Gaskin and Dr. Harper. I know we were truly blessed by it. And this is just an introduction to the congregation, to you guys. Obviously, Doctor, we know you're already you're a member of our church family, but Andrew and I were talking about, even this morning, about doing more sessions in the future. So even what we did last week, or we do this week, to give the church an idea of who you are and what you're capable of sharing. Because I know that you have a great benefit for many in the church, because there's so many different people in church, different walks of life, who need this help, who need these sort of tools to cope and that kind of thing. And I have a question to both of you, a few, but my first question, I know Andrea has into. Obviously, we live in a time where you have to work from at home, basically. You have school from at home. Everything is basically at home. And we are approaching a time where we hope that we'll be able to do a little more and come out a little more and be a little more free, and maybe even able to separate it. But right now it's difficult to separate work from at home because everything is done in one place. And that can impact your mental health like terribly. Because like sometimes you like to distinguish between work and home, because you rather work be at work and home be your sanctuary. Like you come from a hard day at work, you want to kick off your shoes, you want to relax, and you are in your safe space. But I think the last 20 months, our safe space has been invaded by our home. And Dr. Harper made the point just now about it's become, that's we make your bread and butter at home now. You know, you still have a job, but everything is at home. And even as Mr. Gaskin said, with children at home, and everything is at home right now. But how are you able to navigate now through this time where work is at home, school is at home, but still it's supposed to be your safe space? You know, you can't literally leave now. Everything is there. So I want to ask both of you guys, how is it possible to navigate this part here now? Because obviously now there's no more safe space technically. That's what it is. So how will you encourage people now to navigate that dilemma right now?
Okay. Well, I can speak. Let me speak for myself. To be honest with you, as I mentioned before, these where we're operating from really and truly should be our safe space, but it's not anymore. Right now, as you can see, I'm operating from at home. It's not even conducive, and I'm also thinking that it could be very uncomfortable as well, because I have 23 dogs. And at certain times in the evening when I'm teaching and other dogs pass on the road, you can imagine the uproar with the noise of the dogs barking and me trying now to say, stop it. There's no way that you can control what's happening on the outside, but you can only control what's happening on the inside. So what I do, I always make a disclaimer whenever class starts. Okay, guys, it's not the best conditions in which we will have to learn, but this is what we presented with. Let's make the best of it. I encourage you as well. There may be some of you, because you're operating from at home as well, and you're expected to be in a class, but you may have children around. You know what? I am not just be with me. And normally the class that I teach would require persons to have their cameras on. However, if they're children and somebody's nursing or stuff like that, I would say, well, okay, you don't have to have your camera on now, but just let me know that you're there, because I need to make sure that whatever I'm sharing with them remains confidential, because most of the time they're counseling skills that I'm teaching, or a counseling class, and I'm going to be sharing the whole issue of the importance of confidentiality. I'm also going to be sharing things from my life experiences. So I have to make sure that whoever is in my setting is they're exactly who's supposed to be there. You need to sign in with your name. So that's one way that I can try to control, by making sure that whoever's in the waiting room, I have that control of letting them in. So that helps. There are times as well, to be honest with you, I don't even remember. I think I'm just going through emotion. There are times when you forget, what is it? You know, so I might get up, I'm panicking and say, oh my God, today is Monday, but really and truly, because you're working at home, I think it's more demanding.
Yeah.
And you're always working. You do not stop. I work from Sunday to Sunday. There's no time in between that I actually get to relax. So it's very hard. And so sometimes losing track of what day it's very easy. And when I step outside to go and do something for my dogs or anything like that, because that's about where most of my activity goes anyhow, in terms of work, other than if you're going to pay a bill, you find that I might walk out of the car and I might forget my mask, because I'm like, okay, life is as per normal, but then I realize, oh my gosh, my mask. And that's because at home I don't have to wear the mask, but when I go out, I have to do those things. And it kind of makes you scared, because it's like, suppose one day I do this thing and I expose myself, and you become vulnerable to things. So it's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration right now. But you just have to go with the flow and make sure that persons who you're working with as well are also comfortable, so that they can feel comfortable to come in and learn as well. For me, that's me.
Okay, for me, I try to stick as much to a routine as possible. I try not to break I get up at the normal time. I would get up when I was going to work. I try to make sure that, like Dr. Harper said earlier, workout is a very important part of my day. So I make a conscientious effort every day, 5 days a week. I've made a promise during COVID that I would get involved in working out as a lifestyle activity as important as getting me taking a shower more on mornings, because I can appreciate at my age now, my best fight against COVID, along from acknowledging the protocols, is also to maintain good physical health and keep my immune system boosted and whatever. So I find that I work out every morning, and then I would plan my day as I would at school. What is beautiful about that is that sometimes in between lectures, I have a time that I can just sit back and relax. And I bask in the appreciation of having that opportunity and not having to drive somewhere to get lunch. That I can just sit back and I can tell my students take a 50-minute break during a 2-hour lecture or 3-hour lecture. And while they do that, I can easily say to them, well, go and meet your personal needs, go to the refrigerators, get what you want, then you can come back. And even have the luxury of snacking while we're in class, because I understand that you're at home. And what I also try to do, though, Dr. Harper, is because of the mental health aspect and the impersonal aspect of being online and people not having their cameras on, it frustrates me a little bit when I'm talking all day and not seeing anyone. So I've created a situation where whenever you're going to make a contribution, because I'm teaching professional students, nursing students, whenever you're going to make a contribution, internet etiquette dictates that you should turn your camera on at least to have that interaction. So that's one of the things I did, because part of my one of the frustrations was having was just staring at a blank screen with initials and hearing voices and not knowing who I'm
Yes,
talking to, gauging, and in mental health, you like to gauge facial
you have to know.
expressions,
You have to know.
and that's
Yes.
important, yes. So I try to stick as close as possible to a routine, and then I turn what is presumed to be the negatives into positives. After I finish the 9 o'clock lecture, I don't have to drive home to St. Philip. I'm home already. So I just kind of put my mind in that place and go, you know what, it isn't so bad. It isn't so bad. So you need to constantly remind yourself that, the new normal shouldn't be frustrating. The new normal is about adapting. And I suspect that good mental health has been able to adjust and adapt to your environment. So I try to practice what I preach.
I'm jealous of you, Gaskin, for talking about the exercise, because I haven't been able to control my life. I'm always on the go, constantly.
Yes.
The demands from the university and then private practice and having a personal life as well has me on the go, to the extent that
Yes.
I don't know when last I probably ran up and down the stairs or anything like that. So you begin to balloon out a little. And I'm also glad that I'm not at church for that reason, because there's difficulty in wearing my clothes. The clothes do not fit. And I'm afraid that if I go and buy something new, then there might be another lockdown again, and then I leave the things. So, those little things the girls have to think about. So yes, Gaskin, I'm jealous of you.
And do you have any questions you want to ask, or?
No, I don't have any more any
And
questions to ask. I'm not too sure if you have any others from your end.
I think if we do, but maybe we can do is maybe we can have another segment, maybe where you guys come
Okay.
on together, or even some individually, because this things really want to focus on the health of the church. There are a lot of people who are going through a lot, and you guys, because a lot of comments are saying this is very informative information, because that sometimes people got to pay for this, and somebody don't have the money, as Dr. Harper says, sometimes the money is not there, and then as Gaskin said, the children at home, they got to pay more groceries because they're eating more, and sometimes, somebody said the school meals, a lot of parents say that because there's no school meals, that is extra on them, because I think sometimes people don't understand how critical it is for school meals for many families, so that means that there's less income or less money coming into help other things they got to put into groceries now. So all of those things have become issues, and I think that a lot of people have come and said the information is very informative. They liked it because it ministered to them as well. So I really want to thank both Mr. Gaskin and Dr. Harper for coming on. We hope that you could come on again, and share more information. As last week, Carla Ramsey and Ricky Clark did as well. So I want to thank all four panelists for coming on. I want to thank Ms. Titus, Andrea, for getting Mr. Gaskin. It was very nice fun. I had a lot of information. I want to thank our very own Dr. Harper for agreeing to come on. I know this is not your first thing you've done anything in terms of counseling and stuff for the Refund ministry in church. So, you're here with this in a different ministry. So you'll become a member of the sports ministry. I'm an honorary member. I want to thank you guys. Really want to thank you guys for coming on, and I hope that we're able to have you guys on in the future, because I know a lot of people benefit a lot from it. I think that health is something. I was telling Andrew this morning that I think that health is something that we need to do periodical check-ins, because some people, you start well, we all have new resolutions. You start well, we say January 1st, you can do it. February come, all the mental health goals, all the physical goals, because life happens. So I think something to give people that reminder, every 2-3 months, not keep going there. This is something that you could listen to, like keep them motivated, because I heard someone say, I feel motivated now coming from the session. They said that they lost that motivation. They felt like what they said, but they felt motivated through these sessions to, to work on my physical, work on my mental health. So I hope that we can have you on at another later date. I really want to thank you for being a part and coming on board. Really, really appreciate it. And like how both of you guys also tell them about God, because in the midst of everything, we can get all the physical health, as we said last week, and then the mental health this week, but ultimately our source is God. And when we have God, God will take us through any trial, any testing, even this whole thing, COVID. God is still able to take us through, and He would, if He brought us this far, He is more than able to see us through it. So thank you very much. We close off with a word of prayer. And just a few notices before we go. Remember, this Wednesday, our All in the Word, Pastor Steve is back from vacation. He's going to do a 2-part series starting this Wednesday. So I encourage you to tune in and be a part. Then also Thursday morning, my very own brother, Red Holder, will take in charge of the miracle service. So I encourage you to tune into that as well, 11 a.m. If you can, you go on register, you can come. If not, you can tune in online. Friday is our prayer meeting and emergent youth. If you want to come and again, you can register by calling church at 429-2145 or WhatsApp in church. You could come and you could be part. If you can't, again, you can stream online. And then the next Sunday, my very own Reverend Jewel will continue her part 2. Remember, she said this morning, you can walk with your phones because we're going to be WhatsApping in church. That might sound a little peculiar, but come in and you will see what she talk about. But she said Pastor Ezra remind the audience to bring their phones next to me because we're going to WhatsApp in church. She didn't want everything what he buy get, but he said, trust me, it's going to be good. So again, if you missed her message just this morning, I encourage you to go back and watch it. It was powerful. It was on time word. It's something that we all need to hear. That we're stuck in tradition, but we got to go on. And then some of that means letting go of traditions, things that are not even biblical, so that we could see God's glory in full effect. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you once again for being a part. For everyone who came in, everyone who wore the shirt these last couple of weeks. For those who said blue host will win or green host will win, I don't know which one is right. Lord, decide that if we do next year. I see Andrea laughing already, and Dr. Harper. But wherever it is, we pray you have a good evening. God will bless you. Have a great week. I pray God's blessing upon you. And remember, even coming from these sessions, yes, a lot of things going on in our mental health, but our God is still in control. Yes, so again, if you have issues, feel free to reach out here at the sports ministry, even the counseling ministry. We will get you started. If you want to talk to Dr. Harper a little more, I can assure that she would be able to talk to you in whatever capacity or Mr. Gaskin. We heard something that they said that if they want, they could send in their PowerPoint and we share the information with you guys if that's okay. But whatever is needed, we as church want to be able to help you because our team is beyond membership and fostering community. So let's pray, and after that, you're free to go. Have a good evening. God bless. The Lord, we thank you, God, for another wonderful session. God, we thank you for the information that was shared. God, I know mental health is a big topic, but I'm glad that you're able to cover us a little bit. I know, God, as time goes on, they come back maybe next year in different capacity, have more time to elaborate and have more time to do some stuff because there's so much going on out there, God, and we all need help. We thank you, God, for Mr. Gaskin, Dr. Harper, for sacrificing their time. They're very busy. Both of them said they had other presentations over this weekend, God, but they still saw the need to come on and be a part. God, I know that, God, us as a family have been blessed. I know that many people, God, will share this information with other people, will share the link, will share the video, God, to people who are in need of it, God. So I pray, bless them in going out, bless them in coming in, God, bless them in every area of their life. I know they work extremely hard, different practices, different things, but God, give them the strength needed, God, even to help them in their personal life, God, so that they can continue to be blessing to others. God bless Andrea and all the sports ministry, God, as they put together this session, God. I pray, God, bless them, keep them, bless everyone who's watched, Bless someone who will watch later, God. Bless them, keep them, God. Let them to know, God, that you are still with them, God. Even as the Harper shared those verses, God, that you are still our shepherd. You are still our rock. You are still our shield. And same we can do for Job and Elijah and all these different people, you are more than able to come to for us. So I'll be ready to pray. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. Have a good evening. God bless you. And we will see you on Wednesday for an hour in the Word at 6 p.m. God bless you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for being a part. And thank you very much, Mr. Gaskin and Dr. Harper.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Dr. Harper and Mr. Gaskin.